Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here, and I think we have an opportunity here where we're, through the use of technology, going to give others in the media the opportunity perhaps to ask questions from remote locations, and I want to thank our team for making that a reality. We saw 257 new COVID-19 cases reported overnight, which helps contextualize the very small increase reported the day before. As I said then, one day does not a trend make. This is all based on reporting. We had another 9 tragic deaths reported yesterday. Ely and I are praying for every family that has lost a loved one. This is a public health crisis, but it is also an economic crisis. We all have to be willing to admit that. It is an economic crisis for the families with 2 parents out of work. It is an economic crisis for the workers racking up credit card debt today. It is an economic crisis for the people who never thought they would need to rely on the government to get them by, but now find themselves in that position. That is who we are worried about. The stock market will recover, and Wall Street will do just fine. I'm not worried about them. I'm worried about Main Street Mississippians whose lives and livelihoods are directly threatened by the fallout from this disease. Today is Thursday, and the numbers just came out this morning. For the second week in a row, more than 6 million Americans filed for unemployment insurance. To keep that in perspective, prior to last week, when over 6 million Americans filed for unemployment insurance, the previous weekly record in the history of the U.S. was 700,000 claims. In the last few weeks, 1 in 10 American workers lost their jobs. That is staggering. During the Great Recession, it took a year and a half to do that much damage. It's happened over the last 3 weeks in America in 2020. I believe the true damage is much greater than that. Across the country, workers are unable to get through to file. It's happening everywhere, but it is definitely happening here as well. We need to fix it, and we are going to fix it. We're doing that in 2 different ways. We're automating a lot of the processes. MDEs is reaching out to work with some outside private sector help to try and find a way to automate a lot of the back-end work that goes into ensuring we can get people their money. We're also dramatically increasing the live people working on this. We've already doubled the number of people answering calls and have almost tripled them. We're going to double it again in the coming days. Volunteers are processing claims, and we are planning to waive the 90-day requirement for retired workers to return and help. Now, I understand that none of that helps if you can't get through. I know that, but we're working hard every day, and we're going to make it right. Since the coronavirus hit Mississippi, we have seen more than 8,000% increase in new claims of unemployment. First of all, that's a tragedy, but it also means 8,000% more Mississippians are out of work. It's also a tremendous challenge for those working class folks on the line at the call center and working to get the money out. They were asked to do 8,000% more work in 3 weeks, and they've actually done just that. But there's even more work out there that hasn't been done, and we're going to work hard every day to make sure it gets done. Some good news for those 87,000 Mississippians who have been able to get through. Some of the resources that come from the CARES Act will start going out tomorrow. Mississippi will be one of the first states in the nation to be able to do that, and I commend our team at the Mississippi Department of Employment Security for their efforts. It may hit your debit card as soon as tomorrow, but it's not instant for everybody. That's a logistical challenge that we are working on as well, but it starts tomorrow. We're still waiting on guidance regarding pandemic unemployment assistance for those people who wouldn't typically qualify for Mississippi unemployment, but we are hoping to get that guidance as soon as next Friday. The bottleneck there is in Washington, not in Mississippi. I know this doesn't help the people who are hungry tonight, but I want everybody to know that the money will not be based on when you get through the system. It will be based on when you lost your job. You will get the money that you are entitled to. I want to offer a promise to those who are out of work. We see you. We hear you. We will help you. It won't always be as quickly as we want to, but we will not let you down. We will get our economy opened back up at the appropriate time in the appropriate way. I know that Mississippians don't want welfare forever. They want to work. But right now, through no fault of your own, many of you cannot, and we will get you through. I am tracking this dangerous crisis as closely as we are tracking the virus that threatens us all. Today, I have two of our leaders in our Employment Security Agency, Jackie Turner, who is the head of the Mississippi Department of Employment Security, and Timothy Rush, who leads our Unemployment Assistance Program. So at this time, I'm going to ask Jackie to say a few words.
Thank you, Governor Reeves. As you said, we're living in unprecedented times, and it's caused an increase in demand, and specifically in the unemployment insurance program. Many of our fellow Mississippians are turning to unemployment insurance, many for the first time, never thinking that they would have to apply for unemployment insurance benefits. And that's to provide them the stability of financial resources that they need in this time. It's created a tremendous spike in the demand for the program. A spike in the applications and phone calls we are receiving is unparalleled, and we're doing everything we can to address it. Despite some people having difficulty, there are many getting through, and including the approximately 87,000 individuals the governor just spoke of that have filed their initial claims in the last few weeks. We acknowledge that the unemployment insurance program is complex. Early on in the COVID-19 pandemic, Governor Reeves, by Executive Order 1462, took two major steps. One of those was to allow for the suspension of the 1 week waiting period for the unemployment insurance program. That was all entailed to get more funds in the pockets of unemployed workers at a time when they need them most. The second major suspension was to suspend the work search efforts during the COVID-19 crisis. Typically in the unemployment insurance, you must be searching for work every week, and we have suspended that during this time. Those two major pieces of the unemployment insurance program have provided a constant flow and help to reduce the requirements of the program, which are key to carrying on during the crisis. We thank you for your patience while we work to serve you better. We know that things are even more frustrating when our systems don't work the way they should, and if you're having a hard time getting through to us, we first ask you to use our web services, and if you have a problem that can't be solved by using the web services, please keep trying. Our system of WIN Job Centers with the phone numbers and email addresses listed on our website and our call center lines are available to help you. Yes, they are overloaded. As Governor Reeves mentioned, we've engaged with a company and we will be setting up an additional call center in the next coming days to handle that workload. Here are just a few specific steps that we're taking to address the needs. We're evaluating additional measures and asking and working with the lawyers and the governor's staff to ask for additional executive order in the coming days to relieve some of this programmatic requirements of the unemployment insurance program that we believe during this crisis are needed to suspend. We've updated technology and continuing to update technology daily. Between unprecedented demand and rapid changes, we're mobilizing our people and updating technology to implement new emergency rules and programs. But unfortunately, technology changes take a little time. We want to make sure that we implement those changes methodically and don't have any unintended consequences along the way. As he mentioned, we are hiring approximately 100 additional staff and over 100 additional temporary workers. We are also setting up the additional call center, and it will have at least 100 seats of available customer service representatives to meet your needs. We're posting information on our website, social media channels, and Timothy and I both have spent countless hours already engaging with the media, doing Facebook interviews and Zoom interviews and talking on the telephone and webinars for as many as possible so that we can get the word out about the unemployment insurance program and the changes under the CARES Act. We have extended our services to 7 days a week, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., and those workers that we are hiring and have already hired are in those call centers working tirelessly to serve your needs. We've reassigned staff from other parts of the agency to provide more customer service. We are engaging with our partners and other agencies to assist us in specifically taking unemployment insurance claims, but where there is expertise in the unemployment insurance program, which sometimes exists from past employees or retirees that have gone on to work somewhere else, they are graciously helping us train others to work through the unemployment insurance program, and we want to say we are very grateful for that. We will be engaging others, specifically in other state agencies, in the coming days as we can train along the way. We're putting our hearts and our souls and our hard work into meeting the demands that you need us to meet. We ask for your patience and partnership as we adapt to these unprecedented times, and we'll all get through this together. Please continue to watch for our press releases, social media, and our website for the most recent information. And now I'm going to ask Mr. Timothy Rush to go over some provisions of the CARES Act and explain that in a little bit more detail so that we can all understand what might be coming our way if not eligible for the regular unemployment insurance program and some added benefits through the CARES Act. I want to thank Mr. Rush and his team of people for working tirelessly on this effort. And like Governor Reeves said, we see you and we hear you and we haven't forgotten you, and we are working every day to meet your needs. Mr. Rush.
Thank you, Director Turner, and to Governor Reeves. I want to talk a little bit about the provisions of the CARES Act as it relates to unemployment insurance for the citizens and employers of Mississippi. Under Section 2102 of the CARES Act, there is a program referred to as pandemic unemployment assistance. It is very similar to what we're familiar with in the state as DUA, which is disaster unemployment assistance. In this particular program, individuals who would not normally qualify for regular unemployment benefits under the state provisions may be eligible for assistance. The amount of earnings or weekly benefit amount that an individual may receive for pandemic unemployment assistance would be $106 up to the maximum of $235 a week. In addition to that, there will be another program which I'll talk about in a few moments. For those who are self-employed, who may be employed with faith-based institutions or entities, those would be the individuals who would not normally be covered by regular unemployment benefits. There are some provisions that must be adhered to, and I'll read these if you allow me, because they are specific to the eligibility requirements for this particular program. So individuals who are self-employed or not covered under the unemployment benefit program are those who have been diagnosed with the coronavirus, or members or individuals of their household who've been diagnosed with the virus, or individuals providing care to individuals who've been diagnosed with the coronavirus, whether it be a child or a loved one that you are responsible for, individuals who are not available to report to work because they are the primary caregiver for their child who's out of school, individuals who are unable to reach their place of employment as a result of quarantine are also eligible for pandemic unemployment assistance. Individuals who are unable to reach their employment because they have themselves been self-quarantined, maybe their employer has policy or something of that nature where they cannot report to work even though they haven't been confirmed as being infected by the virus, but because of a quarantine policy, they cannot report to work. Individuals who are scheduled to start work and do not have a job as a result of the impact of the coronavirus may be eligible. And individuals who may be the breadwinner or major support for the household or head of household who is directly impacted as a result of the coronavirus. Individuals who have quit their employment as a result of COVID-19. Individuals whose place of employment as a self-employer was closed as a result of the virus, and those who may be seeking part-time work as self-employed workers, and those who are self-employed and do not qualify for other regular unemployment benefits. That's in reference to the pandemic unemployment assistance benefits. When an individual qualifies for, applies for benefits, and I will talk a little bit more about how to apply, they have to have a certain amount of earnings or income for a particular time period. And under state law, the individual has to apply for regular benefits first, and if they don't qualify for regular benefits, then they are eligible to be considered for pandemic unemployment assistance benefits. The pandemic unemployment assistance benefits period starts from January, potentially from January 27, 2020 under the CARES Act, and the last payable week may be the last Saturday in December of 2020. The individual who may qualify for pandemic unemployment assistance could possibly be paid weekly for a 39-week period of time. So it could last them for 39 weeks after March 27th and through January 27th, I'm sorry, and through December 2020. The monetary amount for which the individual may qualify for benefits is based upon what he or she would have earned during a particular time period. And right now, that time period is for the previous calendar year. So individuals who would have been employed in 2019 from January 1st, 2019 through December 31st of 2019 would qualify. It would have to provide proof of their employment earnings, whether it be a 1099. In some cases, it may be a copy of their business license or tax return for the 2019 calendar year. Individuals may also provide a copy of bank statements showing where their earnings were, what they were for a particular time period. Individuals may have a letter of employment or a contractual agreement that they can provide to show that they did have some self-employment earnings for a time period. And this information in detail will be placed on the agency's webpage for more details. And that webpage is www.mdes.ms.gov. Another provision under the CARES Act is the Federal Pandemic Unemployment Compensation, referred to as FPUC. This is the program whereby individuals who qualify for regular benefits or individuals who do not qualify for regular benefits and may be eligible for PUC, a PUA, will receive an additional $600. As the governor referred to earlier, it's our plans at this point to start sending out those payments as early as this weekend or this week. Individuals who file weekly benefits, they have between Sunday of the calendar week through Saturday of the calendar week to file for their weekly certifications. Once the initial claim is filed, individuals who are eligible for FPUC, the first payable week would be for this week that ended on that started this past Sunday, April the 5th, and would be payable for benefits filed after midnight this coming Saturday. So individuals who filed this week, who may have already received their weekly compensation for regular benefits, should be looking forward to receiving an additional $600 for benefits for this week when they file, excuse me, when they filed after midnight this coming Saturday. If individuals do not receive that benefit, then it's basically no need for them to call us or to email us. The system will recognize those individuals. The program will be ran through the system to recognize those individuals who did not receive the compensation, and they will be awarded any monies that they are due in addition to their weekly benefit amount. Going forward, it's our expectation that each eligible individual will receive their regular benefits, and in addition to that, the $600 in one payment. Once the claim is filed, the individual who qualifies for benefits will receive a debit card sent to them at the address of record, and on that debit card, once they have it activated, their benefits will be deposited to that debit card. The the other provisions of the CARES Act, as it deals with unemployment insurance, is the pandemic emergency unemployment compensation, referred to as PEUC. This is an additional 13 weeks of benefits for the individual who've exhausted their regular benefits. Under the program in Mississippi, individual maximum claim is $6,110 for the calendar year or the benefit year, and which is equivalent to 26 weeks that they are able to file for benefits for that particular base period. So if an individual files for 26 consecutive weeks and they exhaust their regular benefits, then they may be eligible for PEUC, which would be an additional 13 weeks for a total of 39 weeks. And the individual also will be eligible for the $600 on top of what they would normally get after their regular benefits expire. Those are basically the requirements or some of the provisions of the Unemployment CARES Act. There is also a provision that Governor Reeves makes possible by, excuse me, signing the executive order waiving the waiting period week. Under unemployment law for Mississippi, the first week is a waiting period week, which is a non-payable week. Because of the governor's executive order, I believe 1462, that waived that week, so the individual, rather than having to wait possibly 2.5 or 3 weeks to get paid, they would get paid within 5 to 10 days on a normal process period. What that does, it provides that the state will be reimbursed for monies paid to every individual who is paid that first week of benefits without having to serve a waiting period. There's also provisions in the CARES Act that addresses chargeability for employers and reimbursable employers. At this point, we have not had state legislation to give the agency the authority to do that, and I'll yield back to Director Turner or Governor at this point and entertain any questions if necessary.
Well, thank you, Timothy, and thank you, Jackie. I think the people of Mississippi need to hear from you, and what you hear from both of them is that they are very competent. They are working diligently. I was at their office building at, I believe it was 7 or 7:30 Saturday night, and it was hopping. People were working. They have a lot of pride in what they do. They are working exceptionally hard because they want to provide these services to the people of Mississippi. And just to remind everyone, 3 weeks ago, Mississippi had less than 1,000 claims that week. The next week, it was 5,500 claims. The next week, it was 32,000 claims. And the week that was just reported earlier this morning, we had almost 45,000 claims. So roughly 87,000 claims in the last 4 weeks. This past week's number of claims was equivalent to the previous 52 weeks combined. And by the way, these are the claims that have gotten through. And so we've got a lot more work to do. We know it. None of those numbers are comforting to you if you've made a phone call and haven't gotten through yet. But again, let me assure you, your benefits are that you are entitled to will begin based upon the day that you lost your job, not based upon the day you get someone to answer the phone. So again, we're maxing up capacity, and we're working hard to do that. So with that, I will take and entertain any questions you have. We do have a number of folks that are on the line, but we're going to start with Ross, who always has the first question.
You talked about the 257 new cases in the last day. Is that because we've increased the number of tests that they're doing at different locations across the state? Is that where that big jump in those numbers come from?
Yeah, so we'll have the docs from State Department of Health back in the next day or so, but we have had conversations regarding that, and I think it is fair to say that is more driven by a fairly large dump of positive tests from a private lab, much more so than it is we saw a significant increase in the number of positive cases that occurred. But what you've also seen over the last really probably 7 or 8 days, we'll go a day where we went 180 and then 80, 180 plus and then 108. And so there's a lot of variability. And so what we're trying to really look at when we really drive down into the data is not just total number of cases on a day-to-day basis, because while that is important in terms of overall numbers, what's more important is looking at when those cases when the symptoms actually began. And so when you look at that particular chart, it really gives you much more information as to is the slow of the spread occurring in Mississippi, and we certainly think that it is, and the data suggests that it is. But the 257, I would suggest to you, and again, we'll see what today's numbers and tomorrow's numbers look like, is probably driven more by the fact that we had a fairly significant number of test results that came back yesterday rather than we had significantly more cases.
And was this private lab? Were they not reporting these results?
Well, every lab is very busy. Every lab has had different successes in getting their results back over a particular period of time, and so I don't think I don't know that there's any one specific lab that's necessarily significantly better or significantly worse than the others. It just so happened that yesterday we had a pretty significant jump. Just for comparison purposes, and I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I believe 3 days ago the number was about 175 or 180. Yesterday it was 80 something, and then today the number was 257. So it's been pretty significant variability. But I think, again, as we have said, the more robust testing we do, and that is something that is part of our plan, is to continue to significantly enhance and increase testing, we're going to see more cases because we're starting to see more and more folks getting tested. Courtney?
You guys mentioned the $600 variable that. Could you speak a little bit more to who? I know that you said that you would let them know, obviously, in that process, but what would some of the qualifications be, just so folks at home maybe don't say, well, I didn't get that added 600 boost, or whatever the case may be.
Mr. Rush went over the provisions of the CARES Act, and I'll start by saying people that qualify, the regular unemployment insurance benefit program is typically for people who have lost their job through no fault of their own. And so people who qualify under that program, and remember, we've suspended the work search part of that and the 1 week waiting period. As Governor Reeves said, those people who have become eligible for that program, maybe already receiving benefits every week so far, they will begin to see that extra $600 added to their debit card or their direct deposit amount starting tomorrow. And it's a very specific time period. I think it began March 29th. Governor Reeves signed the agreement on March 28th, and it began with the next day. It's from March 29th to July, the end of July, for the extra $600. I do want to say that it is $600, but for every unemployment insurance benefit is taxable. And you choose whether you take the taxes out of your benefit or you pay it at the end of the year. And there might be some offsets because you owe us for some past payments, and also because of child care payments, or some things may reduce that $600, but it is the $600 less just some for what you might owe, taxes or some special circumstance that hits you. So those payments will begin as early as tomorrow. Like Mr. Rush said, it's a catch-up period, and then you'll begin to see them. For those who are eligible, you'll begin to see them each week when you get paid your weekly amount. Now, none of us have said this thus far, but once you file your initial claim, it is mandatory that you file a weekly certification to continue receiving benefits. Of course, there have been many challenges along the way with passwords and password resets and call center calls, and we are working through that. We have queries where we're going back and picking up some of the issues, and quite honestly, we've learned some ways through this process that we can do it better and more efficiently. So our IT staff is working feverishly with contractors and themselves and coming up with ways to reach back and pull forward those that might have slipped, that might have had an issue to begin with. The second portion of the CARES Act is what Mr. Rush referred to as pandemic unemployment assistance. The programming is underway for that program. It is similar to the disaster unemployment assistance benefits that we've already had in Mississippi in the past. We are familiar with those programs. Some states don't have a system at all to capture them and have reached out to us to say, can we get your assistance on that? So we feel good that we have a program that is in place to capture the information. What Governor Reeves referred to is we are still waiting on some specific guidance from the Department of Labor to fine-tune the programming for that portion of the benefits, and we expect that to be finished very soon. And those people that qualify under pandemic unemployment assistance, and Mr. Rush outlined, I think it's 10 or 11 criteria for which you may be eligible, will begin to see those payments flow very soon. We expect within 2 weeks, if not sooner. Now, the question has come up about, for those people, understand the programming is not in place in the program yet. It is not, since we haven't had a disaster, the disaster unemployment or pandemic unemployment assistance programming has not been loaded yet in the system while we are tweaking the programs. So the question has come up, should I file, for those people who fit into that category, should I file now or later? There's no wrong answer, but someone have heard people when I've done interviews, I've said, you can do either one. A person can go ahead and file, knowing that they most likely will not qualify under the regular unemployment insurance program. When you mark what kind of worker you are, there's a place for 1099s or some specific boxes that you check that would identify you as this type of worker. Understanding until the programming is there, it's going to tell you do not qualify for unemployment insurance. Some of you have already done that. That's okay. We will reach back with queries and pick you up. I think the preferred method for us would be that you wait. It's going to come really soon. We'll be announcing that through press conferences such as this, through our social media, and through our website, and use all avenues that we can to get the word out that now the programming is in place and now the pathway is clear for you to go through the process of filing unemployment and know that the specific programming is in place. So that will come very soon, and it will be a state amount with the $600 added to it, all funded. The $600 part of all these payments and the funding for the pandemic unemployment, it's important to know that that's all federally funded. And then the additional weeks of drawing benefits that Mr. Rush referred to, it will be based on a case-by-case basis of whether you have exhausted your benefits before and fall under one of those categories of regular unemployment or now PUA or pandemic unemployment assistance, whether you would qualify to receive benefits for the additional weeks.
So if somebody's recently filed as it relates to this pandemic, and they qualified for the regular unemployment, they would get that 600. So if they filed recently, they should be expecting.
And
that.
deemed eligible, filed and deemed eligible, they will receive it with no pending issues.
I'm gonna let Renee ask a question from one of our guests on the line.
Yeah, Governor, we have David Elliott from WLOX. Got a question, David? David, we can't hear you. David? All right, we might want to come back to him.
All right, David, we're having a hard time hearing your question. We'll pop out to, Gerald, did you have a question?
Yes, you talked about asking the governor's office for additional executive orders to make, I guess, life easier. Talk about what executive orders you're hoping for and the timeline you're hoping and the purpose it serves.
Well, Mr. Rush can speak more specifically to that, but I do want to say that we've been very, very careful. There are a few things that we are proposing in executive order, and our legal counsel has been working closely with the governor's office legal counsel to make sure that we are not circumventing or any guidance provided to us from Department of Labor on the COVID-19 crisis. We have to make sure that we don't have any unintended consequences or that we have done something that is not allowable by their guidelines. Mr. Rush can talk about maybe a couple of those possible provisions.
The other thing that I will just mention is also that, to give you an example, typically if employers are responsible for laying someone off, they get a score from the department. Ultimately, how much they owe to the department is dependent upon what that score looks like. We don't believe that we should penalize employees in this scenario. We also don't believe we should penalize small business owners across Mississippi either. And so I would expect that some of the executive orders that legal counsel of both their agency and our office are working to make sure that we protect employers as well through this process so that they are not penalized for anything. Did you want to speak to any specific things that may be in there?
Specifically, let me try to generalize it because there are some extensions to the current executive order which waives the waiting period. In addition to that, there's a possibility that it could be the eligibility requirement of being able to work and available to work. Individuals normally would have to look for work each week. So along those lines, maybe relaxing some of the requirements so that individuals who are accustomed to getting out and going from place to place applying for work would not have to expose themselves to coronavirus and risk. So that's one consideration. The able and availability requirement, possibly considering relieving employers of charges filed for claims filed against their account. As the governor mentioned, under the regular program, if there's a separation of employment, then if it's not for disqualifying reasons, the employer's account is charged for benefits paid to that particular individual. So provisions would be considering whether or not the employer would be relieved of those charges. That money would come from the state's trust fund, unemployment trust fund. We have the fourth most solvent trust fund in the nation. And it's because we have been good stewards over the employers and states' money. As you may know or may not know, the unemployment benefits does not come from a individual's earnings. This is a tax that the employer pays to cover that employee in the event that that individual is laid off due to a lack of work. So most of the CARES Act money comes from the federal government. Actually, all of it comes from the federal government. However, the CARES Act gives the state the flexibility to either suspend some of the requirements or waive some of them. So for the worker, relieving them of having to be able and available and actively seeking work. It would also give employers relief from filing their tax reports. The first quarter, which is January through March, is due this month, the end of this month. So for those who may not be able to pay their taxes, quarterly taxes, the first $14,000 of each worker's income is subject to unemployment tax. So this is usually the most contributions paid by the employers are paid for the first quarter. So we are looking at possibly relieving that requirement or extending the date for which they may be required to pay those taxes and give them an opportunity to try to stabilize the economy.
We'll try again.
Yeah, we're gonna try again. David Elliott, are you ready? See if we get David Elliott, we have you on.
I'm going to get him right now. He won't talk.
We'll take a question from Bobby while we try to find.
Changing the subject just a little bit, Governor, do you think there's any reason to revisit our voting laws to make it, based on the possibility of putting people in danger of voting? And you already suspended some elections that postponed. Do we need to look at more mail-in and early voting opportunities and stuff like that?
I don't think at this time we do. We actually have done a number of suspensions of elections. We will be coming out with an additional executive order fairly quickly with respect to the most recent resignation by a member of the House of Representatives, and so we're going to set that election. Again, we have a shelter-in-place order until April the 20th, approximately at this point. We have a order in place which ensures social distancing that does not have an end date at this time. And so though we can have those conversations as we progress through the next several months, but I don't see any reason to have that conversation right now, and I don't expect we'll have an executive order that changes the way in which we vote at this point.
If this is still around and comes back in November, and people should people have to put their lives on the line to go to vote?
Well, I think we'll talk about anything such as that as we progress through the summer and into the fall. But at this point, I think that I'm hopeful that the innovation and ingenuity of the American pharmaceutical industry and really globally that we'll have a medicine of some sort that will help treat this by then. I'm very confident that at some point that will certainly be the case.
Well, Governor, don't you think it's in the best interest of public safety, public health, to be planning, looking at this just in case people can't go out and line up at the polls in November?
I think that it's great for some people to be having those conversations for what's going to happen in November. Right now, I'm trying to make sure that we have enough hospital beds and enough ventilators and enough equipment over the next 10 days. We'll worry about November when we get to November. Yes.
David Elliott, we've got you. David Elliott.
Governor, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Dave.
Governor, I have a question for you. When you look at what officials did in Texas and Florida regarding the crisis in Louisiana, specifically New Orleans, and that is asking people at the state lines from Louisiana to register and comply with an automatic 14-day quarantine period. Are you close, if the situation in New Orleans continues to spin out of control, to perhaps issuing that same kind of order here at the Mississippi-Louisiana state line, especially with the 3 coastal counties so close to New Orleans?
Yeah, well, thank you, Dave, for that question. That has been a topic of conversation for a couple of weeks now. It's something that we have worked very, very hard on. I have had conversations with the governor of Florida and others with respect to the decisions that they have made. I will tell you that it's a little more complicated in Mississippi because we have a lot of people in Hancock County, in Harrison County, in Jackson County, and quite frankly in Pearl River County. So it's not just our 3 coastal areas, but Pearl River as well. A lot of people who live in Mississippi who work in Louisiana, some of whom work in essential industries. We also have a large number of people in Louisiana that work in essential industries in Mississippi. As you well know, it's a very transient population going back and forth. The fact is that when you look at the current numbers in Hancock and in Pearl River County particularly, but also in Harrison and Jackson County, the virus is currently in many of our communities throughout the state. 81 out of our 82 counties have at least one confirmed case. And when you look at most of those in those 4 counties that I mentioned, Pearl River, Hancock, Harrison, and Jackson, we have approximately roughly between 60 and 100 cases in each of those counties. And so we're still monitoring the situation. I will tell you one of the things that is positive about what has occurred in New Orleans, and I know that I've spoken with Governor Edwards many times over the last several weeks. One of the encouraging things in New Orleans is it does look like, in terms of total hospital use and maximum resource use, they are either at or have surpassed their peak. The number of deaths is a lagging indicator, and typically your number of deaths in this particular virus tends to peak a few 5 or 6 days after your peak hospital use peaks. And so, but yes, we're monitoring what's going on in New Orleans very, very closely. It is definitely one of the hot spots in the country. The number of cases that they have puts them in the top 5 in the United States, and so we're monitoring it very closely. Cordian?
I know that we've talked about this on several occasions, but we're still getting emails from folks regarding evictions. If a landlord were to evict someone, obviously you've said it goes against the executive order, what punishments, if any, could be or will be enforced?
Well, obviously, during the shelter-in-place order, evictions should not be happening. That should be reported to the proper authorities, either to local law enforcement or state law enforcement has the ability to enforce the executive orders, and so those should not be happening. And I understand that if they are, please have them reach out to our office, and we'll try to do what we can to be helpful.
What help out there is there for landlords who have to pay their bills independent upon their rent getting paid?
There's a large number of dollars in the CARES Act. Obviously, the CARES Act is very detailed with respect to the unemployment insurance, but there's also small business owners that have significant opportunities in the CARES Act. The program, for instance, that is in play with respect to making sure that they have the ability to pay payroll for the next 10 to 12 weeks, making sure they can pay their own rent, et cetera. And so there's a number of different provisions there. So you've got small business owners that can apply through the CARES Act, through the Small Business Administration. So if you have a landlord, for instance, in a strip mall, and you have a small store that has been shut down, whether it's a restaurant or something else, well, you can actually apply the Small Business Administration, and you can, with the monies you receive, pay your rent with that. And so it's one of those complicated things where there are programs in place for everyone. It's just each individual has to, and each small business has to figure out and navigate exactly what is the best program for them to take advantage of so that we all work together to get through this together. Renee?
We've got Nick Juden from Jackson Free Press. Nick, you're on.
I just wanted to clarify something. The CARES Act specifies, and I believe this was mentioned, but I want to make sure. The CARES Act mentions that someone is eligible for unemployment if they quit their job because of COVID-19. Can we specify if they're worried they're going to acquire it, if they are taking care of someone who is vulnerable to it? What qualifies someone for quitting their job and receiving unemployment?
Cover. Under the CARES Act, the provision for pandemic unemployment assistance would be one of the programs whereby they may qualify. Under the regular unemployment statute, good cause would be for reasons that may be a detriment to the person's health, their safety, or their morals, or reasons that a prudent-minded person would take to separate themselves from employment. They would also have the burden to show that they gave the employer notice of the reason or conditions or circumstances, and then give the employer an opportunity to correct those or address those matters. And if the employer is unable to do that, then they could quit their job because something a detriment to them. If they qualify for regular benefits, and they may very well do that for quitting for good cause, that would be one provision. If they quit and the reason for quitting is not good cause under unemployment law for unemployment regulation for the state, then they may be qualified or eligible for pandemic unemployment assistance. So in the event that the person meets one of the criteria for the CARES Act, whereby he or she quits, then they may be eligible for the PUA assistance that entitles them to benefits because they don't qualify under the regular unemployment law.
Thank you.
Thank you, Taylor. Appreciate that question. Yes, sir.
You talked about the technology used there at the Employment Security Office. How old was the technology and why was it so old?
Actually, our technology and our IT technology for the unemployment insurance benefit is one of the more modern in the country. I know that I have seen articles, and Governor Reeves and I talked about this yesterday, about the system of unemployment insurance in Mississippi being antiquated or not adequate. I believe those reports are talking more about the amount paid per week and the number of weeks you can receive and the conditions of such, which that is Department of Employment Security is an enforcement of the laws, but we don't make those laws. But as far as the IT system itself, it is one of the more modern in the country. It is web-based, and it was initially developed, I believe, in 2004, but most recently, since, was it 2012, I believe, we revamped our system, and it is a cloud-based system now, and it is not old. And it, like I said, it's more one of the more modern in the country, and where many states have legacy systems and have been struggling over the last few years to find the funding and the staff and the IT partners to modernize their system. Funding for updating these systems runs into the tens and 20 and 30 up to $100 million. And we were fortunate a few years ago when the unemployment insurance program had additional funding available to apply for that funding, and it helped us toward modernizing our system.
And the one thing I would just say is that I think if we are successful in getting the FPUC payments initiated and started within the next couple of days, next 48 hours, which we anticipate that we will be able to do, I don't think there's any question that we will be in the first 5 states in America to accomplish that. And that's something that speaks to not only where we were from a technology standpoint compared to other states, but also where and how hard these folks at the department are working. The other thing I would just mention is, if you look at the overall jobless claims numbers in America today, what you found is that we had almost exactly the same number in the nation this week as we had last week. And so there's a couple ways you can look at that, and a couple things you can derive from it. Number one, you can derive from that we didn't have more people laid off within the last week in America. I think that's highly, highly unlikely. I think the more likely scenario is the capacity of the system nationwide was at its max last week, and that's why we had the same number of total claims in America this week compared to last week. Whereas if you look at what happened in Mississippi, while we have been pouring not only new individuals and new people and growing our call center and growing the number of hours, our total number of claims from week over week were actually up almost 50%. We went from just a little over 30,000 claims that were filed to almost 45,000 claims that were filed. Again, it's unacceptable that if one person calls that they don't get their phone call answered on the first try. I get it. I understand that, particularly if you're that one person. But we have increased the number of people at the call center from approximately 50 3 weeks ago to almost 150, and we hope to get to 250 within the next several days and weeks. Yes, ma'am.
Hannah Wallsmith from WMC has a question. Hannah, you're on.
Yep. Can you all hear me?
Hey, Hannah, I can hear you.
Okay, hey. So, two questions. First, have we reached the peak in Mississippi, and what does that mean for hospital capacity? And also, how strictly do you think Mississippians are adhering to the shelter-in-place order?
Well, thank you, Hannah. I appreciate the question. We have not reached the peak in Mississippi. We have not reached, in my opinion, we have not reached the peak either in terms of total utilization of hospital resources, nor have we reached the peak in total number of deaths in our state. I think that if you look around the country, and this is what so many folks, I believe, have really missed in this particular virus, and that is every single state, and in fact in many different regions of different states, the cycle is in different points today than where it was a week ago. And so, for instance, there is general belief that it is very possible that in the state of New York, which has combined with the state of New Jersey, almost half of all cases in America are in those two states. And so it is believed, based upon their hospital utilization rates over the last 3 or 4 days, that they are probably either at their peak or perhaps even beyond their peak and maybe even on the way down. The same could be said if you look at the IHME model, for instance. The same could be said for the city of New Orleans and for the state of Louisiana. There are those who believe that if you look at new hospitalizations in Louisiana, that it is possible that they have reached their peak and perhaps even are beyond it and are on the way down. In Mississippi, 7 days ago, the IHME model, for instance, and by the way, that's one of many data points that we look at, but I look at it because that's the model that the White House has indicated that they spend a lot of time looking at. Just in the last 7 days, they have changed our projected peak from April the 22nd. Now it's down closer to April the 16th, which is just 1 week from today. And so, again, all of these models are inaccurate. They're not perfect. They've changed considerably just in the last 7 days. But I will tell you there's a couple of reasons why they've changed considerably in the last several days. But the most important one being they're actually getting real data. And to answer your second question, what we are seeing is that by and large, Mississippians are adhering to the policies that we have enacted. They are adhering to the policies that we have put in place. And that is going to lead to a flattening of the curve. It's going to lead to fewer people being hospitalized than would have otherwise been hospitalized. And look, I get it. There's going to be some people who will never be able to convince of that, and that's okay too. But the projections have declined considerably over the last 6 to 7 days. And I believe it's, to answer your second question, because the vast majority of Mississippians, and I'm talking 90+%, are doing exactly what we've asked them to do. Ross?
Can I ask you about something about the racial disparity in the COVID-19 deaths? The fact that 72% of the people who've died in Mississippi are African American. Is that something you're looking at about what that's all about? We talk about the underlying medical conditions, health conditions, but is it something you're looking at to try to mitigate that morbidity going forward so that if we have something like this in the future, that racial group won't be the target of a deadly virus like this?
Yes, that's something those are conversations that we are having with the Mississippi Department of Health. We are looking at it. It is worth noting that as you look at what's happening in other states, and by the way, I commend the Department of Health. I may have encouraged them a little bit or maybe even leaned on them a little bit, but I appreciate the fact that they are continuing to add more data so that everyone has more information that is publicly available. I think Mississippi was one of the first 10 states in America that actually put demographic data as it relates to this particular virus. And yes, it is going to be data that is going to help us drive public health decisions in the future. It's probably not going to change anything in the next 24 hours, but hopefully it can help change things in the next 24 years as we have continuously dealt with these underlying issues. I was sitting at this same table, I believe, 10 days ago talking about Mississippi and where we rank as a state in things like obesity and in hypertension and in cigarette smokers, and all of those underlying conditions are helping drive the end results on that. So
won't that involve public policy changes and maybe expanding access to health care?
Well, what I would suggest is I think it certainly is going to lend itself to many public policy discussions. It's also going to lend itself to more conversations around personal responsibility and individuals making better choices. And so I think there's a lot of conversations that need to be had around that. And I think this is not the first time that those conversations have been had, but it's certainly, hopefully, the one good thing that come out of this is maybe we can all sit down and have a good conversation about a large, comprehensive plan on how we deal with that. Yes, ma'am.
Nick from Jackson Free Press has another question. Nick, you're on.
Hi, Governor Reeves. You just signed an executive order that declared the month of April to be Confederate Heritage Month in Mississippi. Do you think now is the time for a proclamation that so many Mississippians find divisive?
Well, thank you for the question. That is a state statute which declares the first Monday of April a state holiday. It is an executive order or a resolution that every governor of Mississippi has signed dating back for many, many, many years regarding the month of April. And again, it's driven by that statute that names the last Monday in April state holiday. Gerald?
For the first time as governor, you will be hosting a statewide town hall on 12 News, specifically on the coronavirus response. What's the message you want to spend tonight live talking to them at 7 p.m. on 12 News?
Well, thank you for that question, and we are doing everything we can to communicate with Mississippians to try to convince them to do the right thing. It is without question critically important that in this very, very critical time of this cycle that we are in, as we are moving towards the peak, that those individuals adhere to our shelter-in-place order, that you adhere to our social distancing order, that if you are a pastor, that you heed the advice of my friend from Adams County yesterday and choose not to have in-person church services that have hundreds or even thousands of individuals there that are putting themselves at risk. I'm urging Mississippians to comply, stick with us, trust us, and just over the next several weeks, let's all do this, and hopefully we're going to come out better on the back end and stronger. Renee?
Nick from Jackson Free Press has another question.
Hi there. I have a question here in the chat from Lisa Beveridge. I think she might be having trouble getting through. She's asking, what about landlords charging exorbitant late fees for those who can't pay rent right now? And in addition to that, sort of using alternative methods to try and pressure renters who can't afford right now.
Yeah, I have not been made aware of any landlord that is attempting to do that. Obviously, we'd be happy to learn about that, and if they would contact our office, we'll do what we can to be helpful with respect to that.
Are people having trouble on the recertification, are they having trouble getting through on that?
Yes, some of them are having trouble. The password, the account setup for unemployment insurance is very specific, and remembering the email address you use and the password is key to not having issues. Some are trying to file recert and it says, you have an issue, and it says to call, and of course those lines are jammed, and we realize, we acknowledge that. We are working through the phone calls as quickly as possible, but my staff has asked me, Timothy and I, to say that setting your account up, there are step-by-step instructions on the website and in the unemployment insurance system that takes you step-by-step on how to set it up. Remembering exactly how you set it up is key to not having issues. When you forget your password, and there is a help button to help you as well. It's as automated as it can be, but it is specific. So if there's something that's off, or you can't remember your password, it will create an issue. And we have spread that workload out between the WIN Job Center staff and the state office staff. So I would recommend, if they are having password reset issues, and let me say this, the situation is fluid. What I'm recommending today, because of spreading the workload, may not be the answer in the next few days because of bringing a new call center on and those kinds of things. But utilizing the WIN Job Center system that is close to the public, but their email addresses and phone numbers are provided on our website. And yes, sometimes if you're calling the main number, you have been having trouble getting there as well, because the phone systems are all tied together between the call centers, the state office, and the WIN Job Centers. We have provided them additional phones. Those phone numbers have been posted on the website. So I recommend using that as one of the avenues, emailing specifically, if you have trouble with your password reset or those kind of weekly certification issues. But as a reminder, weekly certifications are required to continue earning your eligible unemployment benefit systems.
And just as a reminder, again, www.mdes.ms.gov. That's www.Mississippi Department Employment Security, MDES.ms.gov. Seeing no further questions at this time, as promised, and today is particularly important to do this, as every day has been important, but I do want to wish a few people happy birthday, including my nephew, Gaines, whose birthday is today, to Audrey Boyd from Columbus, and Owen Denson Carter from Amory. Owen's birthday was actually yesterday, and he was watching. Sorry we missed you, Owen. His uncle, Raymond Snuggs in Kosciuszko, had a birthday too, he says. Happy birthday, number 8, to Chevy Hall, to Alexis Skinner from Port Gibson, to Holland James McCarty. Happy birthday, number 1, Holland James. To Dalton Buchanan. Dalton is on the A and B honor roll at Florence Elementary, my hometown. Happy birthday, Dalton. Ella Kate Greer is turning 2. Easton Watley is 8, and he can't wait to get back on the soccer and the baseball field. Easton, I'm with you. I'm ready to get back on those fields as well. Paisley Smith from Pelahatchie. To Briggs McGall, whose first birthday is today. To Bryce Chisholm from Forest. To Colton Touchstone from Petal. To Eli Owens. He and his dad share the same birthday. So Eli, happy 16th. To your dad, Bill, happy birthday to you too. Hayden has a birthday today, and he loves basketball. Trace Garrett from Brookhaven. Dillard McGee from Vicksburg. Tanner McKinney plays football at Gulfport High School. Tanner, happy birthday. TJ Hayes, Harley Hathorn from Noxapater, Lucy Davis from Monticello. To Thomas Hillman, who loves to be outdoors, happy birthday. To Asher Wilson from Tupelo. To Ray Keith from Clarksdale. Now, this is a special one because Ray is turning 92 years young today. He's retired from the Army National Guard, and he's a former USPS worker, as my grandfather was as well. So he has 4 kids, 7 grandkids, and 8 great-grandkids, and every single one of them are a Mississippian. So happy birthday, Ray. Chelsea Lindsay from Pelahatchie. To Emma Tillman, who was looking forward to getting her permit today. Sorry, Emma, but she understands the importance of all the measures being put in place, and she's adhering to them, and we want all Mississippians to adhere to those measures. Happy birthday to Carson Montgomery, Reuben Alexander, Luke McCree, Grayson Sandiford, Roper Lane Rash, to Ava Graham, to Reese Hope. Happy birthday, Addison Fountain, Caden McLemurray, Alexis Hamilton from Batesville. The 8th birthday for Luke Connerly. Happy birthday, Addison Jensen, Braden Chavis from Hatley, Sammy Middleton from Pearl. And to Skylar Tutwiler from Indianola, Mississippi, who is going to graduate from Mississippi Delta Community College in May. Happy birthday, Skylar. To Reeves Wilson, turns 2, and he loves watching reruns of the Andy Griffith Show. So do I, Reeves. I wish I had a little more time to do that right now, but we'll get back to it at some point. Have fun, Reeves. Adam Mitchell from South Haven. Carson Lovelace, again, just learned how to ride his bike. This social distancing isn't keeping Carson from doing what he wants to do. Haley Holloway, Mason Parsons from South Haven's turning 7. Happy birthday to Moses Manning and David Ford Jr., to Corbin McCauley and Owen Ellington. Happy birthday to Grayson Wyndham from Laurel. Grayson says he loves his baby sister, and he's turning 5 years old. Happy birthday to Noah Canton from Corinth. Gracie Jane Joyner from Meridian. Tucker Sullivan from Seminary. Happy 11-year-old birthday to Thomas, and he loves to fish. But he wants everybody to know that him and his daddy have been practicing social distancing at their local pond. Evan Bullock from Columbia. Haley Tapp from Saltillo. Hayden Sanford from Columbia. Happy birthday, Kennedy from Ridgeland. And Brittany Ely from West Point. From Kaylee from Sandersville, Mississippi. She's turning 11, and she loves her dog, Zoe. Happy birthday to Jasmine Gowdy and Kaysen Welch. To Christy, who's turning 40 today. Happy birthday to Bentley Latch from Corinth. He wants to be a police officer when he grows up. Happy birthday to Devin Frierson, to Maddie Robertson from Gulfport. Happy birthday, Evan Frazier, again from my hometown of Florence. To Madeline from Ocean Springs. Happy 12th birthday to Mac Stacy. His nickname on the football field is the Diesel, and he loves all sports. Happy birthday, Diesel. Happy birthday to Lexi Staten from West Point, and Meredith Bramlett, and Noah Walker from Terry. Kaylee from Sandersville. Anna Bird turns 13. Happy birthday, Callie Tran. Callie was born at 22 weeks, weighing less than a pound. She had little to no chance of survival, and today Callie is turning 4 years old and thriving. Happy birthday, Callie. We're so happy for you. Emma Martin from Ocean Springs. Christian Neal from Holly Springs. Happy birthday to George Graves and Presley Bullock and Bradley Merritt from Foxworth. To Myra Lowry, Colt Payne, Marley Grimmett. To Ian Williams Jr., to Lindsay Bostick. Lindsay, by the way, is turning 31 and is a mom to 3 awesome kids, and she's a kid herself at heart. To Carson from Pontotoc, to Amber from Florence. Amber's turning 2 today. Happy birthday to Tucker Jones and Pam Scully, to Taylor Pipkins, to Leland and Rylan Evans from Pass Christian. They are twins, and they are turning 6 years old today. Happy birthday, Madison Montgomery and Lauren James and Mike Hunt and Ryan Lee from Brandon. Ryan, by the way, says that she misses her teacher at Northwest Rankin Elementary. I know a lot of kids out there are missing their teachers, and and we hope that we're going to get to see one another again really soon. Happy birthday to Grant Newman, who's turning 13, to Paxton Porter and Yasmin Farmer and Aniston Harrison and Isaac from Hattiesburg. Happy birthday to Jessica and Noah and Ray Cross III from Gluckstadt. Harris Hunt, Emily Faith Frazier. Happy birthday Matthew Hammock and Faye Johnston. Bentley Reynolds, Braden Long, John Mark Beasley, Jace Wires, Destiny Lewis, and Jeff from Olive Branch. Happy birthday to Gabriel from Vicksburg, who's having his 18th birthday today. Madeline from Ocean Springs, Jet Murray and Logan Harden, Charles Ford from Nesbitt, and Shelby from Gulfport. Shelby tells me that they're spending a lot of time baking in the kitchen during the quarantine. Happy birthday, Key Neville and Bryson Parker, and Lawrence from Carthage, and McKendry Roach, and Anna Holloman and Austin Ferrini. Carter Anderson, happy 71st birthday to Dorothy Howard, who loves to garden. Happy birthday to Aiden from Macomb. Aiden says he loves soccer and wants to be a professional soccer player when he grows up. Happy birthday to Brody Lane Ivy and Faith Stevens and Mark Jones and Mike Hunt. And happy 8th birthday to Holden. Happy birthday to Ellis Farmer, Mary Beth Williams, Deb Bramlett, Kennedy Grace Stewart, Catherine Calloway, Taylor, Anthony Wells, Kix Wilson, Susie Broadhead in Meridian, Lucy Davis. And happy birthday to Kelly Barrett, who is a hard-working registered nurse at a nursing home in Meridian, Mississippi. Kelly, thank you. God bless you. Stay safe. Keep working hard. And to all of our healthcare workers out there, we're praying for you and thankful that we know we have the best, hardest-working healthcare professionals in all of the land. Thank you. God bless. Emmett Taylor's turning 6. Jack Justice is turning 8. Krista and Kara are twins who have a birthday today. Happy birthday to Braden Nicholson and Michael and Mackenzie Riley and Deraya Williams and Kaylee Thornton and Carly Grace Lucky and Holland McCarty and Linda Grace Dunn and Elijah Billingsley. Happy birthday to Suzanne Timms, Kevin Alexis Mahari, Timya Latson, April Nicole Hasley, Charlie White, Levi Litton, to Madison Easley, who will be 12, and to Olivia Hood, who is turning 2, to Lily Kate Locke and Aiden Thompson. Happy 18th birthday to PJ Martin. Happy 11th birthday to Maddie Gregg. Happy birthday to twins William and Louise Whittington. And finally to my friend Joseph, who just turned 15 years old. Happy birthday. And to everybody across Mississippi, thank you for what you are doing to help comply with our orders, to help comply with our recommendations, to help comply to keep yourselves and your neighbors safe. I want to say a particularly special thank you to both of these individuals that are sitting with me here today. They sat here and answered tough questions, and I hope what you see in them is what I see in them, is two people that are helping lead a state agency that is responding to a crisis the likes of which we've never seen before, but are doing it in a way that is professional, that is competent, and that cares for our fellow Mississippians. Thank y'all, and God bless.